started to touch on something here, and that is this idea of dealing with discouragement. So I wonder if sometimes, in fact, I'm pretty sure this is the case most of the time, when we start the process of transformation, we start pretty excited, and that's a good thing. It is exciting when we start to think about the possibilities. We start to think about how we're going to feel, how we're going to look, even how we're going to behave, And we start to imagine our future virtuous self, this person that we want to grow into and transform into. And that excitement is necessary because it's what helps us overcome our fear of change. So naturally, biologically, we have an inbuilt fear of change, right? And so when we go to start on a journey like this, very often voices come up that try to encourage us to run away, to flee, to avoid discomfort, to stay the same. It's kind of like a primal biological mechanism that's wired to keep you safe, or thinks it's keeping you safe. It's not really, but that's kind of the case. So, but inevitably, along the way, you're going to struggle. And I wonder if sometimes we're surprised when that happens. And I think to myself, if you didn't struggle in the process of going through something like Lifestyle 180, if you didn't struggle, I think something would be wrong. Because we're going through a process of transformation. This isn't just a weight loss thing. This is transformation, right? It's difficult because it actually involves a shift in identity, right? It involves a shift in habits and behaviors and beliefs. It gets at the core of who we are and who we have been in the past, right? And so I'd think something is wrong if it wasn't difficult. And maybe sometimes, I really hope that I create this space in this community where you feel comfortable sharing when you're struggling, sharing when you feel down, and so on, right? Because, I love seeing people's wins. Absolutely. I want to see your wins. I love hearing about them. I love sharing them to inspire other people. But sometimes there's things that get missed in the transformation journey. The mundane often gets missed. So the day in, day out grind, where it isn't so glamorous, where we just show up and we do what we need to do to be successful, And then, of course, the low points. It's not easy to open up and expose ourselves and be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm struggling. I'm not doing this as well as I feel like it could be. And, probably one of the biggest things that ruins or damages or hinders progress is discouragement, or what's behind that really is unmet expectations. So we very often in our sort of excitement is we will place this burden of expectation on ourselves that we would not place on another person if they were starting out in this journey. We're often a lot harsher towards ourselves, a lot less compassionate towards ourselves than we would be towards somebody else, like a dear friend or a loved one that we would see going on this journey. We give other people permission to be human. We give them permission to struggle. We lend them a hand. We encourage them. It's curious why we struggle to do this with ourselves, but very often this is tied to the belief or the story that goes something like, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve this, I'm not good enough. Whatever that story might be, that might not be exactly the language you use. And so I want to kind of address, in my little impromptu live here, how do I suggest that we handle kind of the inevitable discouragement that's going to arise in this experience, right? So I really want to make it clear, discouragement is normal. It's an essential part of the process of change. And so one thing we don't want to do is try to push away or suppress that feeling or treat it like something is wrong. Like, I should be motivated every day of this journey. I'm like, no, that'd be nice, but it's never going to happen. I'm not motivated every day, and I've been doing this in and out for years, right? Now, I think one of the things that I try to do is I try to frame discouragement as an opportunity to learn, right? Because remember, I say that emotions are like a check engine light. They point towards something that needs our attention. They're telling us something. So when it feels like what we're doing, when we're not seeing the progress we'd like to see, it's natural to look back to maybe even like our past experience and go, well, I remember when I did that one thing, and that seemed to work for me in the past. Maybe I should go back and try that again, right? But ultimately, can we say that something truly works if it's not a sustainable way of living, right? Because what gets you to your results is ultimately what you'll have to keep doing if you want to sustain and maintain those results, right? And of course, a lot of my work here at coaching is working on the goal of weight loss, right? But there's a couple of sort of difficult realities to talk about here, right? See, once you've been overweight, weight regain, for example, can happen quite rapidly if you slip up or fall off the wagon. And I learned this in really, well, I say more than distressing fashion. A couple of years ago on a trip back to Australia, it was a 21-day trip, and I gained 20 pounds. It sent me into such like an emotional tailspin that I gained another 30 pounds on top of that. And these sound like big numbers, or maybe they sound like big numbers, but the one thing I'll say is, when you've been like 110 pounds overweight, picking up 20 pounds doesn't seem like such a big deal. Of course, it's really devastating when I was thinking again about what I'd have to do to, essentially I've done the math and I've figured out that I can gain weight about 4 times faster than I can lose weight. Whew, man, that's a pretty heavy sort of thing to carry around with me. This acknowledgement that, because it often feels like my biology would be acting against me, and yet my body's doing exactly what it's supposed to do to help me prepare and survive famines, right? Anyway, but why I'm sharing this is the situation is definitely not hopeless, right? Like, you don't have to resign yourself to the fact that, well, I'm just gonna have to suffer and be miserable and only ever eat like lean protein and vegetables and never enjoy a meal again, right? It also doesn't really mean that you have to, like suffer, eat sparrow meals, be ravenously hungry, and just in abject misery all the time. I just want an excuse to use the phrase abject misery. But here's the thing. The process of transformation, what we're going through when we work through this program is, we're going to examine your relationship with food. We're going to examine the role that food plays in bringing you happiness and a sense of fulfillment in your life, right? And there's always going to be trade-offs that need to be made, because here's the process of change and transformation. It does involve letting go of a way of living that no longer serves your goals or your life's purpose, right? And so one of the most challenging trade-offs that we're going to encounter is, like immediate gratification. I was going to say pleasure, present pleasure. There we go. Try and say that one 5 times. Present pleasure. There we go. Or immediate gratification. Trading that off versus our future quality of life and determining what is most relevant or important to us in that moment, right? And here's the thing: that the two aren't they're not mutually exclusive. But there is obviously there's not a time coming. There isn't a time coming where eating junk food for 3 meals a day is going to lead to better health, right? Now, when it comes to change, the other thing that's can be really frustrating for us is the outcome is often not really truly in our control, right? We can't really control the outcome. We can control the process. We can control our inputs, but we can't necessarily control the outcome, right? So now why I share that is because partly because I was writing a piece earlier today for another company that I write content for, and I was writing about goals, and what did I call it? Killer motivation or motivation killer, I think I said, right? So if we only ever focus on the outcome, so an outcome-based goal, it will become the source of discouragement to us, because we're constantly reminded of how far we are from the goal that we want to accomplish, and sort of by proxy, the happiness that we feel like we'll find when we achieve that goal, right? And that's really interesting, because very often I find myself trying to say to people, you don't have to wait until you see a number on the scale or a particular image in the mirror before you're allowed to give yourself permission to be happy. And I think there's sometimes a fear here that if we allow ourselves to be happy in our present condition, that somehow we're just not going to care about our health anymore. And I don't think that's true either. We can love and be kind to ourselves, be compassionate, show ourselves grace, and still be motivated or still push towards a goal that we'd like to accomplish, moving towards a higher, better version of ourselves, right? So, in a nutshell, there's process goals versus outcome goals, for example. A process goal is one where you say, here's the steps I'm going to take to accomplish the goal. An outcome goal is, I want to lose 30 pounds, right? So, excuse me, there's other ones like, I kind of call them push goals and pull goals. You know, a push goal is avoid and approach. Maybe that's another way of putting it. Things we want to avoid versus things we want to approach or move towards. If all we ever do is focus on things we're trying to avoid, like I don't want to eat, binge eat on weekends or something, that's always going to be a struggle or a source of discouragement as well, right? And then there's what we call, like mastery versus like external validation. I think of the phrasing I'd use. Anyways, the point being, when we find motivation or inspiration to keep moving forward because we're striving for mastery internally rather than seeking external validation. Anyways, so how do we get out of our own head? We turn our attention to, and this is what I think I'm trying to, occasionally I have a bit of a tired baby brain, but what I'm trying to get to here is we turn our attention to the things we can do, we can control, and then we take action, right? So, for example, being active daily, that's going to help you live better and be healthier. Yes, you'll have more energy, you'll have more oxygen going to your brain, your mood will be boosted, and so on, right? Even small amounts of activity every day will help you live and be healthier. Let's say eating vegetables with most meals is going to help you feel satiated or satisfied, but also nourish you, right? Including protein with meals. Again, it'll help you lose the right kind of weight while allowing you to be satisfied for longer periods of time between meals. One of my favorites is eating slowly, because for so long I had such guilt around eating. I had such guilt that I would eat like I was a starving, dying man, trying to erase the food in front of me, because I thought this food's going to make me fat and I'm miserable because I'm fat. And so I have to eat this food as fast as I can and get out of the way, but I desperately want this food, and so on. It was such a tortured relationship I had with food. And for me to now sit and eat slowly, to be present with my food, to enjoy each bite, to taste it without guilt, and it's like we get to enjoy food again. Eating slowly is really, really powerful. Permission to be present with our food. And yeah, it looks a little bit different now that I'm a dad, I'll be honest. Sometimes there's gaps. I get a couple of bites in, I burp a kid. I get a couple of bites in, pass the kid to mom, and so on. But nonetheless, we make the best of whatever our current circumstances are. So, and let's just say, even in situations where, let's say hypothyroidism, menopause, other hormonal issues we might be experiencing, the fundamentals of losing weight and maintaining a healthy weight, they actually remain the same. So what changes here? Our expectations. So you might be on a slower path than someone else. You might be facing different struggles than somebody else, right? And so we often look to compare ourselves to others' journeys because we're looking for some kind of hope, comfort, or reassurance. But really, why are we on this journey we're on? Is this really about weight loss? Or is it about the quality of life that we want to gain, right? Is it about having a healthy relationship with our body, learning to be patient, kind, and compassionate with ourselves, right? So instead of being outcome focused, I would say we become process focused or values focused, right? So rather than focusing on the outcome, because that's outside of your control, you focus on the process, cultivating a way of life that moves you towards your goals, because a lifestyle doesn't have an expiry date. And you start to think about I want to live your life like someone who's already at the place you want to get to, right? And this is why obviously I take a stand against this, the idea of the diet mentality, right? The idea that we can create permanent results from temporary change. We can't do that. That's not how our brains work. And here's the other thing. When I talk about being values focused, it's natural to seek comparison, to seek external validation, right? It's what we humans do to give us a sense of security. It's again a very primal mechanism we have. But rather than comparing yourself to others, what I would really, because that's a moving target, right? It's one that you're going to almost always struggle to hit, and it's never really going to be a source of true happiness or contentment. Whereas if we focus on living according to our most important values, right, whether it's love, loyalty, honesty, integrity, compassion, these, this is where real satisfaction comes from, and the two most important values that I hold are compassion and integrity. That's the core of everything that I do, those two values in particular, right? So when our thoughts and our words and our actions, when they line up with these deep core values that we hold, then we can actually say we're living in alignment. It's not like this mystery woo-woo state where we're, humming and burning incense or something. It's actually accessible in a very practical way. So at the heart of this, what am I trying to share with you? It's been a bit of a rant, and if you've been hanging out with me, that's awesome. I really want you to focus on the process. I want you to fall in love with the journey of growing, changing, maturing, because there really is no end destination. There's no point in life that we get to where we're just going to coast to the grave. Like, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to coast to the end now. That's not life. That's not living, right? So, and here's the other thing. Problems don't magically disappear at your goal weight. Once you've lost the weight, you have a new challenge to face, right? So you've often heard me say that weight loss is a doorway. It's not a destination. But very often we get to that doorway and then we get scared of what's in front of us, or we don't, and we run back and we self-sabotage. But from someone, like, I remember when I hit my lowest weight in a long time, and after the initial excitement of seeing that number on the scale, I woke up the next day, and it's like, well, I'm still me. I'm still me. It's kind of like a stark realization. So our problems, that there isn't like an end destination where as soon as I see this number on the scale, that all my problems are solved, that they're going to go away. Like that's not waiting for us. But we're better equipped to handle challenges. So to this day, I still face challenges. I still face challenges around food, nutrition, eating, and I still sometimes will catch myself falling into old patterns. And I don't say that to be discouraging. I say it to be honest, and to help you shape your expectations realistically. Like, yes, I'm never going back to being a 330-pound man again. That's never going to happen. I'm so, like, almost, I would like to say I'm 100% certain. Barring something horribly tragic happening to me, I do not see myself ever going back to that weight again. But it doesn't mean that I get to sort of let off the gas and just coast. Right? I still have to be diligent. I still maintain a coach. I'm involved in a mentorship group. Why? Because here's the other thing. I actually love the process of growth and transformation. So I really just want to encourage you to become clear on what your deepest values are. What is really important to you as a human being? Use that as your source of validation. Use that as your source of comparison. Because, see, values, they're not a moving target. They're not shifting like opinions. Honesty is honesty. Integrity is integrity. Compassion is compassion. It always will be, right? That's what anchors us and gives us a sense of security when we're facing things like discouragement. So, well, that went on a bit longer than I was thinking it was going to. So, anyways, hopefully that's helpful for you. And I just really wanted to encourage each one of you. It's so natural to encounter discouragement. It's so normal to encounter feelings of wanting to quit. That's all a part of the process. That's your brain saying, this is hard, quit, alert, alert, pull the chute, pull the escape hatch, whatever. That's okay. But just don't quit. Don't quit. Reach out. Ask for help. The best time for me to work with you and coach you is when you need help. That's the best time. And that's when I really want to talk to you. When you feel like you're wandering down into the pit of despair, let me throw you a rope. There's no shame in feeling what you feel. There's no shame in struggling. This process is hard. I've watched so many people go through it. It's hard. I don't say that to discourage you. I say that to help you shape your expectations realistically, because the other side of the coin is it's worth it. It is so worth it. And I passionately want to see every one of you accomplish this. So hopefully this is giving you a little bit of hope, a little bit of inspiration, and just a little bit of a reminder. It's okay to be human on this journey. And let's keep going one day at a time, one step at a time.